The Rockford Files. Won't be seen tonight, so we can bring you a very special episode of The Gen X Files. Welcome to The Gen X Files. I'm Jim.
I'm Adam.
And today's show is all about murder by death. Oh, baby. I love this movie so much. You know what's really funny? I was texting with my sister, and I realized, my lovely sister Tracy.
Yes, Tracy's awesome.
That all three of the movies were like our favorites growing up as kids. Bugsy Malone, Murder by Death, and then the upcoming Mad Monster Party. And I just want to give Trace a shout out.
Nice.
Hopefully she's listening, because anytime these movies came on, we would watch them. And I was talking to a friend yesterday, and close to the same age, and he made a really good point that the reason why these movies kind of took off is because, you know, when they were like HBO and Showtime when they first started out, it was basically, you know, they would run 3 movies all day. Yeah. And so they would put these movies on, and you would just catch them.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, all right. And you'd end up watching them like 60 times in a month.
You liked them because you just saw them a billion times.
And it gave them a life. I mean, I think a lot of these cult hits that we're talking about really kind of found their life in kind of early cable.
Yeah, agreed. I agree. And I want to say that thank you to your sister. I'm doing the world a favor by passing on. I actually watched this with my 14-year-old nephew.
Nice.
And he really liked it.
That's surprising, but very cool. But not surprising because your family's very smart and, you know, they know what's good and what is not.
All right. Well, take yourself back to 1976. Ooh. February 19th, former Tower of Power vocalist Rick Stevens is arrested for murdering 3 men during a botched drug deal. He ultimately serves 36 years of a life sentence.
Damn.
Yeah. I just thought it was very odd going from the heights of Tower of Power to murdering 3 people.
Drugs are powerful, baby.
March 1st, Bradford Bishop allegedly murders 5 of his family members in Bethesda, Maryland. The crime goes undiscovered for 10 days, and the suspect is never caught. In 2014, he was placed on the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives list.
The fugitives list?
Fugitives list.
Crazy.
He's never been caught. The man has literally got away with murdering his family.
So watch out.
Left.
He might be right behind you right now.
He is.
He's like 80 now, though, probably, huh?
He's probably dead. I mean, most likely. June 20th, hundreds of Western tourists are moved from Beirut and taken to safety in Syria by the U.S. military following the murder of the U.S. ambassador.
Could you imagine taking people to Syria for safety now?
That's very true. Jeez. That seems very,
Must have been really messed up in Beirut, baby.
Out of the fire and into the kettle?
No, But the Mideast was very different back then.
Yes, it was.
I just want to say, I kind of sense a common theme here.
A lot of murder by death.
Not as funny as...
No, definitely not as funny as the movie. June 23rd, Murder by Death is released into theaters.
Oh, yeah.
Murder by Death, just by definition, is hilarious because whoever says Murder by Death, it just is it's the perfect title for this movie.
It sounds to me like something that the former president would say. He was murdered by death.
Murder by Death is the brainchild of Neil Simon. He wrote more than 30 plays and nearly the same number of movie screenplays, mostly film adaptations of his plays.
It's so weird, he owned like the late 70s, early 80s with his play adaptation. Man, movies were just one play adaptation after another. It was just, and 90% of them were his. And they're all really good, too.
The man was so prolific, and he was very talented. Very, very talented. He's received more combined Oscar and Tony Award nominations than any other writer.
Deserved.
Very much so. Simon grew up in New York during the Great Depression. His parents' financial difficulties affected their marriage, giving him a mostly unhappy and unstable childhood.
That's what it takes, baby.
It's where great art comes from.
Exactly.
Yeah. He often took refuge in movie theaters, where he enjoyed watching early comedians like Charlie Chaplin. After graduating from high school and serving a few years in the Army Air Force Reserve, he began writing comedy scripts for radio programs and popular early television shows. Among those were Sid Caesar's Your Show of Shows, where in 1950 he worked alongside other young writers, including
Carl Reiner, Mel Brooks, Woody Allen, Larry Gelbart, creator of the TV show MASH, and a successful playwright with A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum. Very funny play, by the way.
It is.
And Selma Diamond, later at Night Court fame. He's the one with the voice.
I had no idea she was a writer. I mean, she was great on Night Court. I love Night Court, but that's amazing to me.
Yeah, it's like she was kind of like, if you ever watched the Dick Van Dyke Show, Roz. I think it was Roz, right?
Yeah.
Was the female writer on that.
Yes, I think so.
She was awesome.
Yeah. And he also started writing for The Phil Silvers Show, which ran from 1955 to 1959.
Phil Silvers. Great. If you want to see an amazing Phil Silvers performance, watch him in It's a Mad World.
Yeah.
Everybody's in that goddamn movie.
I know.
Everybody.
Well, the movie's also 14 hours long, so I mean, it's
great.
appropriate.
It's great. Any of the I hate recommending that movie to people now because always like, it's so long, man.
It's 3.5 hours long.
Yeah,
How can
because it's chock full of every comedic genius that has a nice little bit. This isn't a mad world.
Well,
show.
these are the same people that would complain and then sit down and watch 10 hours of a TV show in one day. So whatever. Whatever. Neil Simon's first produced play was Come Blow Your Horn in 1961. It took him 3 years to complete and ran for 678 performances on Broadway.
I didn't say anything.
I saw that look. It was followed by two more successes, Barefoot in the Park in 1963 and The Odd Couple in 1965.
Both made into films.
Yes. He won a Tony Award for The Odd Couple. It made him a national celebrity and...
the hottest new playwright on Broadway.
It was literally, he rocketed into stardom with The Odd Couple. It was huge.
Yeah, and also the movie adaptation had Walter Matthau and Jack Lemmon, so it was just pure genius.
I mean, even more so, yeah, it was great.
Made into a TV show with Jack Klugman and
then remade again in the last 5 years.
And then remade again. It's been remade 6 different times.
Yeah.
What if they were? That's what it is.
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
It's like The Odd Couple, but they're Indonesian refugees from.
Okay.
Sure, we haven't tried that one.
From the 1960s to the 1980s, he wrote for stage and screen. Some of his screenplays were based on his own works for the stage. His style ranged from farce to romantic comedy to more serious dramatic comedy.
Yeah, he had a good range, especially relationship comedy dramas.
I realize that my own writing is very much similar to Neil Simon because you always have to have drama in your comedy, or comedy in your drama, because otherwise everything's just boring.
A lot of his later work was really exploring the machinations of older relationships and what happens. It was just very
Overall, he garnered 17 Tony nominations and won 3 awards. In 1966, he had 4 successful productions running on Broadway at the same time, and in 1983, he became the only living playwright to have a New York theater, the Neil Simon Theater, named in his honor.
Yeah, he earned it.
He very much did.
Paid for it, man.
He did. A
lot of money he brought to Broadway.
Simon wanted to write a screenplay that took him back to his teen years of watching mysteries. Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None, and Humphrey Bogart's The Maltese Falcon, which obviously I realize it's not his movie, but everybody knows Bogart and Maltese Falcon.
Right.
Yeah. Simon wanted to do a spoof on those mystery novels where the reader would have no way to actually solve the crime before reading the last 5 pages of the novel. This is something that he was very passionate about because he loved mystery novels and he hated the ones that you couldn't figure out.
Yeah, because they're cheats.
Yeah, exactly.
They're cheats. You're just cheats.
Exactly.
Use your goddamn prepositions and articles.
To get the film produced, Simon turned to his friend Ray Stark, who had produced his previous film, The Sunshine Boys, in 1975, in which George Burns won an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor.
That's a great movie. Have you seen that movie?
No, I have not.
Sunshine Boys it's he and I believe the actor that played Ed Norton on The Honeymooners.
Cramden?
No.
That's
the actual name of the lead character.
Okay. Oh, Ralph
Cramden.
I don't know.
But this gentleman, who's a great actor in his own right, they're like they would play this old comedy team, and I think they're trying to get him back together for it. It's just really great. There's this real lack of movies starring older people.
Yeah, agreed.
Since George Burns and Walter Matthau and Jack Lemmon, since these guys passed away, nobody makes any movies about older people.
They're not doing... It's just not a genre that's explored at all anymore.
And it blows, because movies like The Sunshine Boys or... what's the one with the old guys stealing the stuff? They just made a remake out of it. But anyway, you know what I'm talking about. It's just... There was such... I know it's weird to say, but back then there was a diversity in storytelling and in generational telling that now it's just like, well, if it isn't 20 to 25 or...
it does. Agreed, 100% agreed.
Or a completely jacked 50-year-old.
Completely jacked 70-year-old. It's getting to that point. Ray Stark had a history of successfully producing plays turned into films, such as The Night of the Iguana in 1964, based on the Tennessee Williams play, directed by John Huston and starring Richard Burton.
Richard Burton! One of the all-time great alcoholics.
And Funny Girl in 1968, adapted from the musical starring Barbra Streisand. Stark had a history of working with John Huston, producing 4 of his films and producing 5 films starring Barbra Streisand.
John Huston's awesome.
Fantastic.
His role in an actor too.
Yeah,
because he was he directed Chinatown, right? Was that Polanski? No,
I think it was Polanski. That was Polanski. Yeah,
but he was in it. John Huston was in it. He played him. Mr. Getz.
Yeah,
Mr. Getz, sit down, Mr. Getz.
That was a weird time because was it Sidney
Pollock?
Pollock was an actor too. Like there was a time when the directors they dabbled. It was the 70s. Like they went back and forth all the time.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of directors like to have their friends in their movies too.
Yeah.
You know, like Blues Brothers. Steven Spielberg.
Right. Just shows up
in his greatest performance ever.
So Stark would continue to work with Neil Simon over an 18-year period, working on 11 films, including The Goodbye Girl in 1977 with Richard Dreyfuss and Marsha Mason.
Richard Dreyfuss.
Yeah, Dreyfuss won an Academy Award for Best Actor for that film.
Yes, I was doing very much cocaine during that period of time.
His whole acting was just cocaine.
Action!
California Suite in 1978, which won Maggie Smith the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress.
I adore her. And that is such a great movie. It's another kind of ensemble movie about people staying in a hotel, I think.
Yeah.
And they're different stories, overlapping.
Yes. That was also a time. That was another like the old man genre where it's not really done anymore.
Well, they're adult films, and I'm not talking like sexy nudie films.
No,
I'm talking like for adults. For people that are like have jobs and live real lives. There were actual movies for those people.
Right.
It was because look, all we had were the movies and TV.
Yeah.
In terms of visual.
That was your media entertainment.
You didn't have streaming. You didn't even have VCRs, pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, the radio was there's no longer radio dramas. There was not. It was literally the movies and whatever happened to be on TV that night.
So there was a lot more range in what was getting made because there was a lot more money to throw around.
Yeah. Chapter 2 in 1977 with James Caan and Marsha Mason.
Great movie.
Caan
playing a playwright. Yeah. So many playwrights in his plays. Good Lord.
Right. Well, The Cheap Detective in 1978 starring Peter Falk, which some places I read technically call this a sequel to Murder by Death, but I think it's just similar.
Yeah, it's very similar. Well, every character I play sounds exactly the same.
Yeah. And seems like old times in 1980 with Goldie Hawn and Chevy Chase.
Love that movie. Love it. Chevy Chase, ex-husband of the beautiful Goldie Hawn, and oh, baby, her husband at the time is played by Charles Grodin. And Chevy Chase gets in some trouble. He's like this reporter or something, and people are after him. So he hides out in her house during like this huge dinner party with the mayor and stuff. And there's all these dogs, and it's just one of those crazy kind of farce. Watch it. It was Chevy Chase at his prime when he was just a handsome, awesome movie star, and when Goldie Hawn was the most beautiful woman in the world. Still is very beautiful.
A huge portion of Neil Simon's catalog is on Amazon Prime, so highly recommend going and checking all this stuff out.
Yeah, there's not very many stinkers in that bunch.
No. So Simon went to Robert Moore to direct Murder by Death. Robert Moore had a long history of directing Broadway and off-Broadway plays, gaining fame in 1968 with the world premiere of The Boys in the Band, a groundbreaking play depicting gay characters at a party for a friend.
Ooh.
Yeah. Moore had directed some of Neil Simon's plays, Promises, Promises in 1968, a musical comedy based on the film The Apartment by Billy Wilder, which ran for 1,281 performances. I love The Apartment. It's one of my favorite movies.
Oh, yeah. It's awesome. Well, I mean, we could do 10 shows about...
Billy Wilder.
Yeah.
The Last of the Red Hot Lovers in 1969, which ran for 706 performances, and The Gingerbread Lady in 1970, which ran for 193 performances. Moore then turned to directing TV. He directed an episode of The Bob Newhart Show in 1974.
Hi, Bob.
And 26 episodes of Rhoda between 1974 and 1975.
Rhoda with Nancy Walker as Ida Morgenstern?
I think it was Ida, yeah.
What are you doing, Rhoda? It's so funny to me that she has one of the most distinctive voices, and she didn't use it at all in MBD.
Murder by Death was Robert Moore's first feature film. He would go on to direct The Cheap Detective in Chapter 2 for Neil Simon. These were his only feature films he would direct. He would direct a bunch of TV movies between 76 and 83, including Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, the adaptation from the play. He has multiple Tony Award nominations. Unfortunately, he passed away from AIDS-related pneumonia in 1984.
God damn it.
He was a very openly gay actor. It's another director who acted a lot too. But yeah, he unfortunately caught AIDS and died.
Yeah, that was that whole debacle, that whole just awful period of our history, Ronald Reagan.
Bad news. Bad news.
Eesh.
So casting.
I just want to point out, he is a very theatrical director. Like,
yes,
you needed a theater director to direct Murder by Death because it is such a theatrical production. The same friend that I was talking to yesterday. I think he did a production.
Oh, really?
A theater production of Murder by Death.
Really?
Which I was thinking while watching it, how much fun that would be.
Oh, yeah.
I would love to do that.
Well, that's the thing, is that Neil Simon writes. Every actor loves being in a Neil Simon play because they're fun and they're fun to put together.
Yeah, all the characters are really well defined and they all have really snappy dialogue.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, the guy's a genius.
Yes, completely. So Truman Capote was cast as eccentric multimillionaire Lionel Twain. Capote was a famous novelist, having written Breakfast at Tiffany's and In Cold Blood. It
was a crime novel.
It was...
It wasn't a mystery. It was true crime.
It was the beautiful part is watching it is that I'm just like, I can't imagine him going down to Nebraska or Kansas or wherever the hell In Cold Blood took place, and him just ingratiating himself in that community.
Well, you saw Capote.
Yeah.
I mean, fictionalized versions, but just him, this little, obviously gay.
So weird.
Such an odd bird, but people loved him. Like, big old cops would have him over for dinner, because they also didn't think he was gay. I don't know. There's this whole weird, that's just such a weird time. But anyway,
it was a weird time.
The guy's a genius, great writer, and I think this was one of the only movies he ever did.
This was the only credited role he had.
And it was perfect. It had to be him. It had to be him. The ending monologue works so well because it's him doing it.
Right. He did have an uncredited version of himself in Annie Hall in 1977. He shows up for like 2 minutes.
I just came to get some sherry.
So Simon and Moore discussed actually replacing Capote with what they called a real actor, but it never materialized.
Great.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. I mean, because he wasn't the beginning when he was first revealed. He's not fantastic.
No.
But that's what makes it charming, and that's what makes it work.
He's just really pissy, and it's really funny. It's just he's always annoyed. And his interactions with Peter Sellers...
Oh.
Use your gun! That was what I was saying before.
Yeah.
It's just like he gets, as a writer, it's so funny that the literary things annoy him. My sister and I used to say that all the time. Use your prepositions!
In between shooting scenes, Capote worked on his new book, Answering Prayers.
That's why I wasn't very good. No, I'm just kidding.
Wow.
I never read Answering Prayers.
I never did either. Alec Guinness was cast as blind butler James Sir Bensonmum.
James Sir Bensonmum.
I'm sorry.
Benson,
sir? No.
Benson? No, Bensonmum.
Guinness won the Academy Award for Best Actor and the BAFTA Award for Best Actor in 1957 for his role in The Bridge on the River Kwai.
Oh, man.
He was also nominated for an Oscar in 1952 for his performance in The Lavender Hill Mob. Bridge on the River Kwai is an amazing movie.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, David Lean, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's that guy was, he told epic stories, epically.
Oh, that's a 3-hour movie nobody ever complained about.
No. Yeah. It's Lawrence of Arabia, too. It's like, you know.
He was
the guy knew epics.
He did. He was Alec Guinness was nominated in 1958 for the Academy Award for Best Writing Screenplay based on material from another medium for his screenplay adapted from Joyce Carey's novel The Horse's Mouth.
Complicated.
I didn't realize that he was a writer too. So
they all did everything. They're all great at everything, aren't they? Jedis can do anything.
It was while working on this movie that he received the script for Star Wars. He would read it between scenes in his dressing room.
It's like, come, you guys have to come in here. Please, come. This is hilarious. Hilarious. Let me read you some of this dialogue. Oh, come in. These aren't the droids you're looking for. What is a droid? Does anyone here? Peter, do you know what a droid is?
Look, I don't know what a droid is. I'm just looking to get me a drink or something, sir. Sir,
hey, could you just drop the act for 5 seconds, please? Just for 5 seconds.
No.
That was some behind the scenes.
Yeah,
I can't do it, sir.
No. Alec Guinness was also nominated for Best Supporting Actor for Star Wars, which I apparently didn't realize.
Yeah. Star Wars got some nods.
Well, it was huge. They kind of had to.
Yeah, they had to give something.
Neil Simon took such a shine to Alec Guinness during production that he told Guinness that if he did not like anything in the movie, he'd immediately rewrite it for him, but Guinness assured him that it was great fun.
Oh, it's great fun playing Benson, Mom.
He spent some of his days off on the movie strolling around Beverly Hills. He also used his off time writing a show based on the work of Jonathan Swift.
Everybody's doing everything. Nobody's just doing this movie. Everybody's got 6 different jobs.
Yes.
I hate that. I hate when you're working with somebody and they're like hustling their next job. It's like, dude, just be present for 5 seconds. There's a lot of downtime in movies.
There is. Nancy Walker as the deaf-mute cook Yetta. During her 5-decade-long career, she may be best remembered for her long-running roles as Mildred on Macmillan and Wife, and as Ida Morgenstern, Rhoda's mother, who first appeared on several episodes of The Mary Tyler Moore Show, and later became a prominent recurring character on the spin-off series Rhoda.
With her fiery red hair.
I don't know if it's because of her that the director started directing Rhoda, or if it was the other way around. I'm assuming she suggested him.
Small town?
Yeah.
She's amazing, too, by the way. And like I said, in this, I mean, it's so hard to pick favorite parts from this movie because it's just so great. But the scenes between Benson Mum and what's her name?
Nancy Walker.
I know, but
Yetta.
Yetta. Having an Academy, Sir Alec Guinness, playing this blind butler, and she's the deaf maid, and their interactions are hilarious because he's just, all right, I need you to, dinner will be at 9, and she's just sitting there like smoking a cigarette, not paying attention, handing him these notes, and the notes are hilarious. Hi, my name is Yetta, and I'm a maid. I don't speak English.
Yeah.
This note was written for me. I can't read this.
Yeah. I also don't speak English. It's great.
And you're like, oh, how does that work? Blah blah blah. And then by the end, you're like, oh, okay, well, it was all manufactured. It all makes all the ridiculous BS does strangely make sense by the end.
It works because it doesn't work.
Right.
That's the amazing part. She was also a film and television director, lending her talents to the Mary Tyler Moore Show, on which she also made several guest appearances. Walker has multiple Emmy and Tony Award nominations. This was actually her final theatrical performance, choosing instead to focus on TV work after.
It's a lot easier, especially when you get older. TV's just a nice, steady gig, baby. You go to work, you do your job, and you come home. Usually it's in LA where you live. You don't have to go on location. It gets tough doing movies and, flying places for 3 months. It's not put up in nice hotels and stuff, but it's still a lot of work, and it's still hard to be away from home.
And it's TV's guaranteed job for 5-6 months. You know you're going to keep working. You know you're going to get a paycheck.
It's got a routine. It's got, you can work on a character. It's not. It gets to be, probably pretty fun and pretty easy.
She probably wanted to be close to home, had family or something.
Let's do a seance and find out. We'll ask
her. Peter Sellers as Inspector Sidney Wang.
Oh yes, very very problematic.
That was the very first laugh that my nephew did, was the White Wang comment. He just giggled so hard. Wang is based on Earl Dare Bigger's Chinese police detective Charlie Chan, and is appropriately accompanied by his adopted Japanese son Willie, played by Richard Narita.
Charlie Chan always had a number one son. And okay, before everybody starts freaking out about cultural appropriation, I get it. But
yes.
The thing about this is also a dig and a nod at the genre because Charlie Chan was always played by a white actor.
Always.
In crappy makeup with the racist teeth and the very accent.
Yeah.
Not using prepositions and just say talking in riddle.
Yeah.
It was BS, anti-Asian crap, right?
Yeah.
So he wanted to play on that. Like he wanted to. You had to have a white character play that part.
Yeah.
To get that dig in, you know what I mean, and
for it to work, Otherwise, it would be really racist and really stereotypical. If you had an actual Chinese man playing this part, it would be awful,
right? But also, so it isn't done to be disrespectful. It's done to point out the disrespect that was done.
Yes. And who better to play it than Peter Sellers,
exactly.
who just does characters?
Honestly, the first choice I kind of would rather see Orson Welles. I love Peter Sellers, and he's a genius. But watching that man chew the scenery,
he would have been great. Yeah, he would have been fantastic. I agree.
He would be. Hey, number one son.
Orson Welles was originally considered for the role, but was unable to accept because he was appearing in a play in Italy. Peter Sellers reportedly played several practical jokes on cast and crew during filming, including once calling Neil Simon up and imitating Alec Guinness and demanding a rewrite of a key scene in the middle of the night. Yeah, neither Guinness nor Simon were very amused by this.
The thing about Peter Sellers is a genius.
Yes.
He is one of the greatest comedic actors ever to grace the silver screen. He was a sociopath.
Yeah.
He was not a good dude.
No. He was very mean.
Very troubled man.
Yes.
But almost positive he was a clinically diagnosed sociopath, which made him an amazing actor because he could slip into every role,
Yeah. He didn't care. He didn't care if you got offended. He didn't care.
They chalk that up to creative genius back then, but he was just kind of a sociopath.
Sellers was also an avid photographer. He shot photos of the cast while they were assembled in the dining room set. He gave each of them 11 by 14 color prints of his work at the close of production.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Nice, but also a little narcissistic. I don't know.
Immediately after completing this movie, Sellers was so convinced it was going to bomb, he convinced the producers to buy back his percentage share in the movie.
Coward!
Yeah. Which is funny because the movie made quite a profit.
It did. Not too smart. Well, I get it, man. If you don't get it, I get it. Like, if you don't understand the film...
Yeah.
He's just probably like, this is just a farce. What is going to happen? Especially if you're shooting it, it's like, well...
I can imagine him thinking that everyone's going to watch it and go, they're going to hate this. And
I think he was insecure about his own performance.
Probably.
I think that's what it was. Because,
I can imagine. It would be tough.
He's under a lot of makeup. He's playing, but he was really funny.
He was fantastic in the part.
There's so much depth to all these caricatures. That's what's the beauty of this, is you have archetypes. You have, takeoffs on the greatest detectives of literature. But even though they're just caricatures, they're so deeply nuanced that they're characters of their own. Yeah. They transcend what they're parodying.
Right. Completely. David Niven and Maggie Smith as Dick and Dora Charleston.
Oh, Dickie. And don't move, darling. It seems like there's a scorpion on the bed. Oh, Dickie. We need to get out of here, Dickie. I got bit by the scorpion. Just calm down, dear.
Yeah, that was so
Are you sure the scorpion was fake? Oh, yes, of course, dear.
Yeah.
You're sure?
We need to go to the hospital. Oh, it's fine.
We have 30 minutes.
They spoofed the Dashiell Hammett characters Nick and Nora Charles from the Thin Man film series.
Super popular film series. People don't even remember these, but in the 30s, man, it was like James Bond. It was like these were the franchises back then.
Yeah. The Charles wire-haired terrier Asta is also lampooned, appearing here named Myron. That was Phoebe's one complaint, is they should have showed more of the dog.
Yeah, well.
My concern, literally, as watching it, I was like, oh my God, does something happen to the dog?
No, it's a comedy.
I know. Maggie Smith is one of the few artists to achieve the triple crown of acting, having received highest achievements for film, television, and theater, winning 2 Academy Awards, a Tony Award, and 4 Primetime Emmy Awards.
It's so hard to pick a favorite in this movie because everybody is just goddamn perfect, but I just think she edges everybody out just a little bit because she's so funny. And he gives her
Yes.
the best lines, honestly.
Yeah.
The way that the dialogue drips out of her mouth is
Yeah.
it's like music almost. I mean, it's just that nobody has the timing, or I don't know how to explain it. The je ne sais quoi.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Maggie Smith has got it, and she is just so watchable and so hilarious, and she plays that part perfectly.
Neil Simon writes women very, very well.
Yeah.
Because I would agree with you, except that my favorite in this movie is Eileen Brennan. But he writes women so well, and it's.
Why do you have all
she's
those
so
wrestling
funny.
magazines in your office?
Don't worry about it, sweetheart.
So Maggie Smith won a Best Actress Oscar for the prime of Miss Jean Brodie in 1969. I was kind of hoping that eventually she'd win a Grammy because I really want her to be an EGOT.
Let's get her on tape.
And I want to say, Maggie Smith, most people know her obviously from
Harry Potter.
Harry Potter and playing McGonagall, but she was so beautiful in this movie.
She's still beautiful.
So absolutely beautiful.
She's been working for like 60 years.
Yeah, she's
a national treasure. And I'll tell you what, man, get her reading some children's book or something, and we'll get her a Grammy.
Yeah.
Get her the spoken word Grammy or something. Come on, people.
Between takes on the set, Dame Maggie Smith and James Coco played a lot of Scrabble together.
I forget how just incredible James Coco was.
Yeah.
His take on Hercule Poirot
Yeah.
is delicious. And, oh my God, James Cromwell, known as Jamie
Yeah,
Cromwell back then, Jamie Cromwell, his first movie, this is the guy from Babe, and he also from All in the Family. You know him from a bunch of stuff.
Oh, yeah. Myrna Loy was originally offered the part of Dora Charleston. She originated the role of Nora Charles in the Thin Man franchise, but she declined, later stating that
It would have been ridiculous to have Myrna Loy doing Myrna Loy.
she also stated that she didn't want.
My ass pinched by David Niven.
David Niven had won a Best Actor Oscar for Separate Tables in 1958.
Is that because it is in the script that he pinches her ass? Or was she
I don't
saying
know.
that he was a cheeky...
No, she was saying that he would have done it regardless.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, he would have done it very charmingly.
I think he had a reputation for being a bit of a ladies' man.
They were all jerks back then.
Yeah. David Niven had written a book, Bring On the Empty Horses, which was quickly climbing to the top of the bestseller charts all over the U.S. while he was filming. Dame Maggie Smith and David Niven also starred in the film Death on the Nile in 1978 by Agatha Christie. David Niven was phenomenal in this movie.
Yeah, always. I mean, he was a phenomenal actor. He was one of those guys. There were this set of actors that were just classy.
Yeah.
They just exuded class. And he played on that in this movie.
Yeah.
About how erudite he is and, you know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But it's just there, you know, Cary Grant. There was a set of actors that were just, you know, these really classy, you know, you want to have a martini in a club.
Yeah, they're always standing around holding
They dress for
martini,
dinner, you know?
talking. Yeah, yeah. You got to wear your suit and tails to go to...
Your dinner jacket.
Yeah,
you got
dinner
like
jacket,
16 different suits you got to bring on a trip for every costume change.
James Coco is Milo Perrier. Perrier is a spoof of Agatha Christie's Hercule Poirot.
What about your buns? You have buns, you did tell me you have buns. No, monsieur, I'm talking about my buns.
So that opening scene with him and James Cromwell is so funny.
You have chocolate on your face.
It's just...
Get it off of me.
It's the only way to make that... Because it was such a stereotypical accent, but both of them make it so funny.
Well, yes, because they
So funny.
commit.
Yeah. He arrives at the house with his heavily French-accented chauffeur, Marcel Cassette, James Cromwell, in his first feature film role,
He's so young.
which is fascinating because he's so good right out of the gate.
Yeah, I think he had already done some TV.
He had, yes, he had done
that point.
TV. He wasn't just out of nowhere, but this was his first feature. James Coco was the recipient of a Primetime Emmy Award, a Drama Desk Award, and 3 Obie Awards, as well as nominations for a Tony Award, an Academy Award, and 2 Golden Globe Awards.
Yeah, the guy's got it, and he's a very sweet human, and
Yes.
he is an activist, and I think he chained himself or glued himself to something and got arrested recently.
wow.
Yeah, the guy puts his money where his mouth is. He's a sweetheart.
Nice. Coco had appeared in Simon's Last of the Red Hot Lovers in 1972 on Broadway. Coco would later appear in 2 more Neil Simon films, The Cheap Detective in 1978 and Only When I Laugh in 1981.
It only hurts when I laugh.
I don't know James Coco as well, but I will say after seeing him in this, I need to see everything he's ever done.
Yeah, the guy is just absolutely. He pops, man. He's got that energy and that. There's certain actors and I don't want to. certain bigger actors, I would say, because he's a plump man.
Yeah.
But he is so graceful.
Yeah.
And in control of his physicality.
Yes.
And you watch his performance and everything is just precise. And there's no movement that is not precise.
Yeah.
And wasted. And everything, eye movements, all of it is just impeccable. Chef's kiss.
When he comes back out wearing the
butler's
clothes, like, it is so brilliant. He was so great. And the whole, I'm not a Frenchie, I'm a Belgie. Like, what?
I'm not a Frenchie.
But even at that moment when he says that line, he's like, I just made fun of myself.
Yeah. Yes. it's so funny. And you know, all of these characters have these incredible egos too.
Oh,
it's just,
oh my God. Huge egos. Peter Falk is Sam Diamond. Diamond is a parody of another Dashiell Hammett character, the Maltese Falcon's hard-boiled Sam Spade.
Look, I get $50 a day in expenses if I can get them. I ain't rich like you guys.
He definitely was doing a caricature of Humphrey Bogart
Yeah,
in his Casablanca character. It's so fantastic. Falk starred as Columbo, of course, for like 30 years.
Excuse me, sir. Just one more thing, sir.
He's been nominated for a ton of Emmys and Oscars. First person to be nominated for both in the same year, doing it 2 years in a row.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. You want to see Peter Falk as an actor, watch Cassavetes films.
Oh, yeah.
He's incredible. And it was I hadn't really been exposed to Cassavetes before college. Mm-hmm. And I had this film class, this professor that was obsessed with Cassavetes.
Oh, yeah.
So we saw pretty much everything that he did, which I'm so glad, because I didn't realize, you know. I mean, I knew Cassavetes from, like, TV and stuff. And same with Jenna Rollins and same with Peter Falk. But, man, it is so uncomfortable and so insane.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. If you like film, if you like independent film, watch Cassavetes.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Falk, between scenes, paced back and forth in front of his trailer so often that producer Ray Stark gifted him a treadmill.
Nice. And that was a 1980s treadmill or 70s treadmill.
70s treadmill.
There was no electric
motors
or anything, I don't think.
Falk was also involved in the editing and post-production of a movie for television in which he had recently starred, Phoenix Loves Griffin, which was later retitled as Griffin and Phoenix in 1976.
Yeah, I don't like. I want Griffin to come first. I think Phoenix should come second. It just isn't hitting for me.
For more on Falk, please listen to our deep dive episode on Columbo.
Yeah, hey, you can hear my crappy impersonation ad nauseum.
That is not true. Your impersonation of Falk is very good.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, appreciate it.
Only done out by your impersonation of Guinness. Your Guinness is very good.
Okay.
Diamond is accompanied by his long-suffering, hard-boiled, sexy but needy secretary Tess Skeffington, played by Eileen Brennan. He continually denigrates and mistreats. Her name is a riff on Spade's secretary, Effie Perrine.
Oh, yeah. The long-suffering secretary. I mean, that's the trope of these film noir and these noir books, was the long-suffering gal Friday that's definitely in love with the detective.
Oh, yeah.
And will do anything for him, but he doesn't have time for her.
Well, I mean, he calls her his mistress, and, like, she's kind of like,
I don't like kissing. Leave me alone.
That was the funniest thing, too. Kiss me, Sam.
I don't like kissing. Leave me alone.
Go back to my bodybuilding mags.
Why do you have so many wrestling magazines, Sam?
Research.
Eileen Brennan made her film debut in the satire Divorce American Style in 1967, followed by a supporting role in Peter Bogdanovich's The Last Picture Show in 1971,
great movie,
which earned her a BAFTA Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress. She gained further critical acclaim for her role as Captain Doreen Lewis in Private Benjamin in 1980, for which she received a nomination for the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress.
Oh, you want to see... That's the best Eileen Brennan performance ever, because she plays such a hard... Her and Goldie Hawn, my God, it was gold.
Yeah.
Private Benjamin's a hilarious movie. And this was one of the, this was women in military. It was first women in military. Yeah. And Goldie plays this spoiled brat who joins the military because they tell her it's going to be all these great things. The recruiter lies to her. And then old Eileen Brennan is reality. Smacking her in the face.
She actually reprised the role in a television adaptation, winning both a Golden Globe and a Primetime Emmy Award.
Oh, I used to watch that show. It was a good show.
Yeah. When she had a long lunch break, she would dash home to spend it with her two preschool sons. She would later appear in The Cheap Detective with Peter Falk. Eileen Brennan started another old dark house mystery genre comedy, Clue, in 1985, an adaptation of the board game Clue, in which she played Mrs. Peacock.
Nice.
And I think most people probably know her from that. The old dark house genre was revived in the mid-1970s and 80s. It was really big in the 50s. The Spiral Staircase in 1975, starring Jacqueline Bisset and Christopher Plummer. The Cat and the Canary in 1978, starring Honor Blackman and Olivia Hussey. The Private Eyes in 1980, starring Don Knotts and Tim Conway.
The private eyes are watching
That's
you.
actually what that song is about.
That's from the movie, bud.
Yeah.
That's it was in the movie. Yes.
In 1980?
Uh-huh. Yeah, that was Private Eyes was the Hall of Notes movie thing.
Okay.
But yeah, the cartoons use that all the time.
Yeah.
Scooby-Doo, there was always in a big house. And what I'm really surprised is they didn't do the in one door, out the other door chase scene in Clue.
Yeah.
They kind of did a version of that with the room disappearing. But, there's always that scene shot down the hallway, and there's like 5 doors on either side of the hallway, and one goes in one door and comes out the other door and comes out the other door, and then they meet each other. It was like that's one of the classic bits.
Yeah.
I played around with it a little bit.
Yeah, we don't really have the old dark house stuff anymore. Like,
no, they tried it a bit in the 90s. There was a few remakes but they made it so big and supernatural, and there wasn't, I guess like the closest thing to like the mystery stuff would be, what was that movie? Everybody loved Chris Evans in the sweater.
Knives Out.
Yeah.
And it's not really, I mean, it's kind of, but
no,
not really.
but it's that's the thing is like, the beauty of this movie is it points out the absurdity of most of these stories, which is, you have this mystery, and if it's a real mystery, you can usually figure it out.
Yeah.
Or they do what they point out at the end of this is just, completely blindside you with BS and be like, wait, what?
Introduce 18 new characters in the last 5 minutes that you had no idea. My absolute favorite trope of this in this movie is the dark and stormy night, where it's only storming out the window and not in the door they just came in.
And then it eventually starts raining when David Dim is like, it's really raining now, Dale.
Elsa Lanchester is Jessica Marbles. Marbles is a parody of Agatha Christie's Miss Marple. She's fantastic in this, yeah. She gained recognition as the eponymous Bride of Frankenstein in 1935.
It's so crazy that that's her, but she's Miss Marples. She's so good at that. And the character that she's based on, had a long-running nurse that would take care of her.
Yeah.
And in this, her nurse is so old that she takes care of her nurse because she comes, walking in.
Yeah.
Wheeling this old lady in, and they're all like to the old lady, "Oh, hello, Mrs. Marple's." Like, "Oh no, that's my nurse. I'm blah, blah, blah." And the nurse is like, "Cry me poo."
Yeah. So funny.
Icky poo. She was hilarious, by the way, that old lady.
She was great. Lanchester played supporting roles through the 1940s and 1950s. She was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress for Come to the Stable in 1949 and Witness for the Prosecution in 1957. Following her husband, Charles Lawton's death in 1962, Lanchester resumed her career with appearances in such Disney films as Mary Poppins in 1964,
Mary Poppins,
That Darn Cat in 1965,
great movie,
and Blackbeard's Ghost in 1968. She also appeared in the successful horror movie Willard in 1971.
Such a creeps. Willard is about a
favorites.
Kid. Yeah. Oh, man, the scene where he drowns all the rats is so freaky.
So creepy.
And the sequel to Willard was Ben. With
Michael Jackson.
Ben, the two of us need look no more.
In between shooting scenes, Lanchester was busy working with Charles Hyam on the biography of her late husband, Charles Lawton.
Yeah, everybody's doing double duty. Who's not got 2 jobs on it? What are they all broke? Everybody's got to work 6 jobs?
This is why it was so good, because everybody was super aware and did everything. No, it's the fact that if you have people that are willing to be doing so many other things, they're going to be good.
Teasing them, but it's just like, geez, man.
Her biography of her husband was scheduled by Doubleday to be published in May of 1976. She'd actually met Charles Lawton in 1927, married him 2 years later, and stayed with him until his death in 1962. They appeared in over 12 films together during their careers. Unfortunately, Murder by Death was one of her last film roles. I think she was in a couple other movies after this, before she passed away. In the film, Marbles appears as hardy, robust, and tweed-clad, wielding a frail, ancient-looking, seemingly senile companion, her ancient nurse, Miss Withers, played by Estelle Winwood, for whom she is now caring, who everyone initially assumes is Miss Marbles. Estelle Winwood was a reluctant film actor. She started working before film became popular and didn't like the medium.
Okay.
Which is fascinating to me.
Stuck with it for quite a while.
There was somebody that was alive before movies and said,
Yeah, but 106 years later, she's still doing a movie.
Elsa Lanchester, Elsa Lanchester and Estelle Winwood actually hated working together. They'd appeared in a bunch of stuff together. They had a decades-long feud that made their scenes very stressful.
Well, then why hire her?
They were both perfect for the
Yes, they
parts.
were, but it's just like, man, it's like, well, I know you guys hate each other. I'm going to make you work together every day.
This was Estelle Winwood's final film performance as she died just a couple months later.
Spite and hatred.
I think it's because she was old. She was like 1 billion years old.
All right, ageist.
So during the production, Neil Simon said,
We should have taped the first read-through of the script and released it as a comedy album. It was a classic. The first reading is where I see what works and what doesn't. It was the best one I've ever witnessed for any of my plays or films.
Simon was on set every day to make any necessary rewrites. While he wasn't rewriting this film, he sat in his trailer and worked on a new play and screenplay he was writing.
Yeah, because everybody had to do something else. Everybody had to do. It was a twofer.
I could just see the director being like, okay, let's get everybody, where's everybody at?
Where's everybody? Are you all writing your other projects? Come on, man. We got to get done today. Hey, Niven, put your typewriter away. Put it away. Just 5 more sentences, please.
One more page. The film was shot entirely at Warner Brothers Studio in Burbank. The Country Road was built on stage 16 of the Burbank studios. This was contrary to the traditional practice of contemporary movie making of using actual locations for exteriors. The reason for creating the set was to give the movie the look of the 1930s and 40s detective genre movies, which have a very distinctive style.
It's a cross between that and the Universal Studios tour.
Yeah.
Like with the wonky bridge. But that's the whole point. I mean, everything is manufactured in the movie. I mean, in the conceit of the movie. In the movie. Truman Capote's character completely manufactures everything that's going on. Everything has been planned down to the nub.
Yeah. Every single thing. Instead of process photography, a large rotating drum with cyclorama of painted trees and branches and real shrubbery attached moves around as the cars remain positioned.
It gives it such an old-timey feel when you have that the guy
lights.
cranking.
Yeah.
He's just cranking that. You see the same tree go by 16 different times while two guys just kind of jostle the car. I did a movie where we did that, but what we did is we took 2 lights and I stood on a ladder and just kind of rolled these lights over, and it made it look like headlights going over the car as we jostled it.
Yeah, the autos were jostled in place to simulate movement, and the exterior scenery outside moves by on a leafy carousel. It was a filmic technique used in the 20s. 8 dozen evergreens, hundreds of shrubs and assorted foliage, and tons of dirt were used to create the country road. This was a costly bit of landscaping, according to the movie's production notes.
$5,000.
Yeah, well, I mean, they got what they wanted, and it worked. Construction on the mansion began in August of 1975. Although an elaborate and complex edifice, the structure was completed in record time. While the script described the house as Victorian, production designer Stephen B. Grimes took some artistic liberties.
Also, when you're working at the studio, you've got the studio construction team, which is on effing point, man.
Yes.
Those guys know what they're doing, guys and gals.
They actually loved working on it because it forced them to actually create some of this like vintage stuff.
Yeah,
and they didn't want to. It's normally they're just creating facades and things, and they actually had to create like amazing stuff that it was shining their craft.
Yeah, I was giving them a chance to do a little something different.
Yeah. In his mind, Grimes pictured the kind of American estates which millionaires such as the Hearsts or Morgans used to bring over stone by stone from Europe. Furnishings for the mansion, according to set decorator Marvin March, were valued at more than $25 million.
Damn.
They used antiques from the Mark Hopkins estate in San Francisco, antiques rented from exclusive Los Angeles shops, and some old pieces from the Burbank Studios property department. In addition to the classic furniture pieces, there were authentic suits of armor, period paintings, porcelain daggers, and old swords.
And many stuffed animal heads. Because of numerous special effects sequences, some copies of paintings had to be created. Peepholes were present in the movable eyes of several of the paintings. Oh, yeah. And
oh my God,
not just eyes, but little tongues. The greatest is when the dog thing, and he's like, Dickie, there's a tongue coming out of there.
Yes, there's a tongue. Yeah, he was just like, yeah, whatever.
Don't pay attention, darling. Don't give it any notice.
The screaming woman sound used as a doorbell is Fay Wray's screams from King Kong in 1933, which was it seemed like it was going to be overused, and it kind of was, but it worked every time.
It's one of those things where it gets overused and then comes back to being funny.
Yes.
You do it so much that it is funny again. Which is one of the things I love.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. This was one of the first films to employ product placement. You can see a case of Coca-Cola in the kitchen.
Sure you can.
Oh, yeah. It's right front and center.
It's so not... It's just so, like, normal now that you'd barely even notice it. But back then, it was like, woo?
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of people, when you first start watching the movie, you think that it's set in, like, the 30s or 40s, but it's very obviously not.
No. Well, I mean, you just look at Truman.
Yeah,
you know, he's complete. Everybody's dressed as their character,
right?
But his character is a modern man.
Yeah, yes, very much so. The movie received mixed reviews from critics. Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune gave the film 3 stars out of 4 and wrote that
after getting off to a shaky start, the picture quickly hits the speedball comedy pace it doesn't lose until the unsatisfactory unraveling of the mystery.
He obviously didn't get the movie.
He didn't get a lot of stuff. You know, no disrespect to the poor man, and what he went through, but I did not like him as a critic. He was just so pissy.
The thing I don't get is that he obviously didn't like it, but he still gave it 3 out of 4 stars.
Well, he didn't make any sense with his reviews. His stars and his talking never matched up.
I don't get Gene Siskel.
Well, good. You don't have to worry about him anymore.
The movie...
It all went to their head, man. When Siskel...
No,
nobody gave... There was a few critics, Vincent Canby, I forget her name.
Pauline
Kael.
Yeah.
That were amazing...
Yeah, great
critical
writers.
And won awards, deservedly so, and put thought and read some of their articles, read some of their reviews.
Ebert was that way too. He was a great writer.
He was better than Siskel, but I think when Siskel and Ebert rose to popularity, they had this PBS show at the movies that just blew up and then became a syndicated show, and then they were it.
Yeah,
you know, every movie poster, if it had a Siskel or an Ebert quote, it was a guaranteed hit.
2 thumbs up.
The thumbs up your butt, but it's just Siskel was just all over the place.
Yeah,
you know, Ebert loved. It seemed like Ebert loved movies.
Yeah,
and kind of wanted to love movies and got annoyed at movies that should have. You know, like his criticism made sense
because they should have been better. Like he's like, if you're going to do all this, make it better.
But Siskel had a way of kind of like.
4 stars, but it's one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
You know, or he's arguing about a movie he would rather see than the movie that is on there. I just look. I never really liked Siskel.
Yeah, no, I'm 100%.
God rest his soul.
Watching the PBS show, I agree. I always agreed more with Ebert.
Because Ebert was a populist. Ebert loved movies. Siskel was a
snob.
But Siskel, yeah, exactly. He seemed like a guy who never made it.
Yeah,
and just was looking. Siskel was looking for things to dislike, where I think Ebert was looking for things to like.
Yeah. Perfect. Yes, that is exactly it.
Wasted 20 minutes when I could have just said that.
So, Murder by Death made $32.5 million at the box office. I do not know what the budget cost. It was much lower than that.
I would say probably 8.
Yeah, I don't even think it was that high.
6, maybe?
I don't even think it was that high.
Well, you had to pay the actors because you had a little big, you know, it wasn't.
I want to say, honestly, in 1976, I think it was between $2.5 and $3 million.
Really?
I think so.
Let's look that up and we'll clarify.
I have tried. It is not in
really.
There. Yes, man, that is why I didn't include it. I would have included otherwise, but I want to say it was between 3. Yeah.
Call Neil Simon.
But the 32. Let's have another seance, Jim.
Yeah. How much did your movie cost, Neil?
$17 million.
32.5 doesn't seem like a lot back then or now, but it was equivalent of $170 million today, which is a great independent movie.
Yeah,
I mean,
great, especially a comedy.
Yeah,
you know, and a genre comedy. That's a big hit.
Yeah, it is
the studio money.
If you've not seen it, and I did not see this movie until we chose to review it and go over it for the show, but I will say I wish I had.
Yeah.
I write much like this movie.
Yeah, it's weird to me that you haven't seen this movie because You rip it off. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
No,
I mean,
but you
honestly,
do have
kind of. I didn't even realize.
Maybe
but
you're just the reincarnation of
Neil Simon.
Neil Simon.
My writing is very similar to his. I did not realize, and I've not seen a lot of his stuff. I need to get more into it. Although I'm a huge fan of Clue, and this Clue obviously borrowed heavily from this movie.
Oh, 100%.
I think when they were doing Clue, and we'll eventually cover Clue.
Sure.
But I think when they were doing it, the writer realized this was the only way to make a board game adaptation work.
Well, of course. I mean, look, Clue's great. But Clue's not Murder by Death.
No, totally.
And anybody who's a fan of Clue, you're going to love Murder by Death.
Yes.
And if you're a fan of mysteries, and if you're a fan of great acting and great dialogue, and watching Sir Alec Guinness, old Obi-Wan, old Ben Kenobi, being funny as hell, sitting there nude.
Great. So
sitting
great.
in the nude.
Yeah, can you imagine him just being like,
I don't think that was him, by the way, because you never show his face.
No.
It might have been a body double. But he wasn't really
I
nude,
want to believe that he was. That was him.
Inspect the body. I mean, it's just the way that the actors play off of each other. And in the ending, I don't want to spoil. I'm not going to spoil it. Even though this is a
I don't even know if I
movie.
can spoil the ending because it is so complicated.
The ending, but the funny thing is the ending seems complicated, but it's just basically pointing out how absurd these mysteries are, and how absurd these detectives are.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And done in such a way. And like I said, having Truman Capote, a true crime author himself,
right,
deliver this monologue, also because strange to say, he was the next generation of crime authors. So it was almost like he, as Truman Capote, was critiquing and criticizing the people that came before him for cheating the audience with their BS endings. It's just brilliant. And it gets even weirder and weirder and weirder.
There's robots.
Oh, jeez. Well, the best part is there's a whole part at the end where everybody comes in to solve the crime, one after the other.
Yeah.
And not to spoil anything, but Alec Guinness must have been having the time of his life with that scene.
Yes.
Watching the changes every...
yes.
Especially when he's like, you're not even a man at all.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. That is... It was so... You could see it in his face, the transformation.
Oh, yeah.
It was so brilliant.
It just shows what a great actor he is. And this is what I love. These actors that are so respected and so, so many of them are self-important and, they won't ever, disparage or besmirch their reputation. The guy's having a blast just being a fool.
Yeah.
And just, you could tell he is having the time of his life.
There were about 50 major award nominations between this cast, and all of them were just like, this is fun. We're doing this.
Yes, and they all committed 100%.
Yeah.
100%. And there's not a bad performance in it. The kid playing the Japanese adopted
Richard
son.
Narita is fantastic.
He's got, hey, Pop. He's got such great time.
He seems so out of place, but he's the only one that's actually in the right time.
Right. And he's also like the right person. He's actually culturally appropriate.
So,
But there's so much to love about this movie. And it's just one of those classics that you don't get anymore.
Yeah.
You just don't get. You don't get these neat little self-contained weird little comedies with huge stars anymore.
No.
I mean, this is like an independent film with arguably some of the biggest stars of the time.
Yeah, which is just something that's not going to happen.
No.
And this is before the Hollywood started paying the actors $20 million where you just couldn't do something like this. The nice thing is that Murder by Death still exists and that you can watch it. I actually got it from the library. Nice. And I also own a copy because I had to. As soon as I saw it, I bought a copy.
Yeah.
You can get this movie, watch this movie. I have proof positive from a 14-year-old and from Phoebe. They both went into it very skeptical, and they both really liked it.
It's great for your collection. It's a great movie. It's a great movie to watch with your family. Not like your kids, because they'll probably get bored, but like,
you never know.
Your parents. It's, if you got Gen X parents or, uncles or whatever you want.
Yeah.
Be like, hey, You ever see Murder by Death? Watch their faces light up and suggest, hey, I'd like to see it. Watch it with them.
Yeah.
And I bet you they'll be like, I just ordered the DVD. Let's do it tomorrow. It's just such a wonderful movie. This whole month is just about finding weird little movies that you probably missed. And unlike anything else you've really seen before. And this, too, even though it is a takeoff on a very well-worn genre, it is completely unique in its execution.
It is.
And it's one of the funniest ensemble mystery films to this day that you'll ever 100%. See. You know, if you're concerned about Peter Sellers playing a Chinese character, just know that that is part of the satire.
Read the history.
Yeah, exactly. Know your history before you get outraged. That's that's a good rule of thumb.
There was a reason for it.
Exactly.
There's a reason behind everything in this movie, which is why it's so brilliant.
It's the weekend. Get the movie. Watch the movie. And your life will be better and you'll thank us.
Yeah. We'll be back next week with some Mad Monster Party.
Oh, another
Super
one of the
excited.
weirdest damn movies
Yet
ever.
another thing this month I've not seen, so I'm super excited about it.
I also want to point out, not only because I mentioned that my sis and I watched all these movies, but this is her birthday month.
Oh, that's right.
And her birthday's on August 20th, so we'll be doing Mad Monster the day on
the day before
Tracy's birthday eve.
Yeah.
So this month is kind of our birthday present to my sis, Tracy. Happy birthday, Tracy. We'll do it again next week. Woody Allen, Larry Gelbart, creator of the TV show MASH. And, whoa, sorry.
That's all him. Sorry, that's all Larry Gilbert.
Let me start that again. We now return you to your regularly scheduled programming, All in the Family, already in progress.